instead of going all the way back and redoing that surgery, we could just do like a little bit of non-surgical enhancement for them.
The interesting thing is this sort of large volume. It's fantastic for thinner patients who don't really have much body fat.
So you can really get great visualization, make sure that you see exactly what you're going after. And so it's very, very precise, and therefore we can do it very safely.
Yeah, I mean, technology has really advanced. I mean, it's plastic surgery. That's one of the great things about our field. Between the surgical improvements as well as the technology improvements, I mean, it's amazing what we can offer patients.
The beauty scientists, Dr. Kristy Hamilton and Dr. Roy Kim. Real beauty without the hype.
Welcome to the Beauty Scientists. We are your plastic surgeons answering your questions about the latest and greatest in aesthetics, surgical and non-surgical. I'm Dr. Kristy Hamilton in Houston, Texas, here with my colleague and friend, Dr. Roy Kim in San Francisco. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Great. And we have been to a number of meetings between the two of us over the last couple months. In the US and also for you internationally. And one of the, I think, global topics that we've been talking about is just the latest in surgical body contouring. And boy, are there some really neat advances that I know both of us, we've employed some of these, and I'm excited to share what we were doing to take these beautiful bodies to the next level, because as we all know, summer bodies are made in the winter. So we've been working hard the last couple of months.
I think summer bodies sometimes are made in our operating room. So it's going to be a fun-filled topic. Talking about the latest in body contouring.
Definitely. So we're going to touch on rib remodeling today, fat transfer to the musculature itself. So if we're getting that truly chiseled look, no butter stick abs in sight. And then finally, an off-the-shelf material that we're excited about. Let's start with rib remodeling. So what is rib remodeling?
You know, classically, we've always known that you can actually break a rib, sometimes remove a rib, and your waist looks slimmer. I think the issue has been it's pretty painful. Just where the rib sits in terms of anatomy, you don't want to damage things, specifically the lung cavity. And there is a newer technique, which is about to hit the mainstream, that you're excited about, I'm excited about, called rib remodeling, where we can make a tiny incision and sort of like bend the bone, but not necessarily break it in a bad way, and your waist looks slimmer. So if you could describe what you saw at the latest meeting, the ASAPS meeting.
Yeah, so our friend Dr. Hoyos was describing this, and the technique actually came out of Russia. So apparently Russian women can do anything. So they apparently are doing this under local anesthesia in Russia, and just going in and kind of, it's like a partial fracture of the ribs. Over there, they were making a centimeter incision on the back in order to make a very focused scratch basically on the ribs. And then they were able to mold them so that the lower ribs wrapped around and made the waist tinier. It's since been refined, and this is what I'm excited to be now offering, that through just a needle point, so just like a 18 gauge needle, you can make just a slight little poke, and then you can use that with a ultrasonic drill. We call it the Piezo tome, but something like that. And then you can do the same thing without damaging the skin. So it's almost scarless. You'd have like a tiny little dot on either side, and that allows you to address the bottom up to the bottom 3 floating ribs, which are the ones that don't come all the way around and attach at the front. So this is exciting because you can narrow the waist up to 8 centimeters, which is tremendous, and it's customizable. So who would you see as a good candidate for this procedure?
I think the best candidates are probably people who have a shorter torso. They naturally may have a boxy frame because, you know, if you've lost weight, even if you've had like a tummy tuck or something like that, or considering getting a tummy tuck, if it's simply sort of boxy there as opposed to indented or curvy, those are probably the best candidates. And I can't think of anybody else who'd want it except those type of patients, of course, would love to have.
Yeah, because we see some patients that come back, they may have had liposuction and you're like pinching them, you're like, there's no additional fat to remove here. And yet they're like, but I still don't have that really narrow waist that I'm looking for. And for some of those patients, it is like they don't have any extra fat, but they just have more splayed open ribs. And so this is a great option. And the South American doctor doctors that were presenting their series of patients, they said from some of their countries where indigenously patients are from at like higher altitudes, they said a broader rib cage maybe just for increased lung capacity. So they said they were seeing that in some of their patient populations. It's been very, very popular for that reason. I think one of the cool elements of it too is that you make this very like this scratch on the ribs in question so that you can narrow them. And then the patients actually have the opportunity to narrow their waist to the desired degree because the rib remodeling doesn't happen overnight. So they're wearing a corset for 6 to 12 weeks, depending on what your goals are and what protocol you're following. And so they actually have the ability to narrow and narrow and narrow the waist just to the point that they are happy. And I think that's really neat too.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And then for the viewers and listeners out there, yes, we need to do a scratch. I guess you could technically call it, we have to make a cut in the bone, but the instrumentation is so good. It's under ultrasound. I mean, it's literally a pinhole, as Dr. Hamilton said, which is the amazing thing. Very, very cool.
Yeah. And I'm utilizing, so not just ultrasonic drill, but then like my ultrasound device too. So this is really ultrasound and technology, just like keep on finding all these different ways to employ it in the office. And this is like another one. So you can really get great visualization, make sure that you see exactly what you're going after. And so it's very, very precise, and therefore we can do it very safely.
Yeah.
So that's
yes. Yeah, I think one very rare complication, in fact, I think it basically doesn't happen, but patients need to know about it. You can have a lung deflation / punctured lung / collapsed lung / pneumothorax, in theory.
In theory. And so what can help is to know exactly where your device that you're, whatever it may be, you can see it. And if you know exactly where you are, then it's not a guess or going by feel. Like you can directly visualize it. And so I think that's really important if you're going to be offering it.
Yeah, that's why the ultrasound is so important, because then you could literally see it. Like you could see it underneath the skin, which is fantastic.
Yes. So I'm excited about it. I think it's like, again, for like the right patient, it's like it's a solution for them. And then the next concept in body contouring is the concept of fat transfer to musculature. So tell me about that concept. How is that different than just ab etching?
We can, of course, add fat to the buttocks. That's called a Brazilian butt lift. We're adding it technically not to the muscle, though. We're just adding it to the skin. With body contouring, we can now add fat to muscles and specific types of muscles. But RAFT, rectus abdominis fat transfer, RAFT, we're actually not just getting rid of the fat above your six-pack muscles, we can actually add fat to your six-pack muscles. So by doing a combination procedure of adding fat to the six-pack muscles and removing the overlying fat, you can really make those muscles pop. And it works very well in certain types of patients, I believe, correct?
Yeah. So you want to make sure that they're at a BMI between about like 25 to 28, because we need to make sure that we can see the muscles. So granted, these patients we're doing liposuction for them because we have to get fat in order to transfer to the musculature, but they need to be at like in reasonably good shape so that we're able to really reveal that musculature and then see the hypertrophy of them. But it can be for men or for women. And this is the response to those clearly fake liposuction results that you see on social media sometimes, where you just see like that carved butterstick six pack, and you're just like, okay, like that person like clearly doesn't work out. It doesn't look like there's something about it. You don't need to be a plastic surgeon where you're just like, you're looking at it, you're like, this is, maybe it's like too perfect, like, or like it's exact right angles. Because that's not what abs look like. If you look at fitness models, like each six pack isn't necessarily at the same level. They're not at like perfect 90 degrees. And so by actually taking the fat and then injecting it into the muscle bellies, we're causing focus, hypertrophy, and therefore definition of the muscle itself. And even cooler than just that, which is really respecting anatomy, that concept, it's that if you are someone who works out, which you should be, then over time, over the subsequent months, that fat almost acts like fuel for those muscles, and it will turn to muscle, or the muscle that's there, we'll use it to build actual muscle. So it's like a way to almost like accelerate your results, which I just think is fantastic.
Yeah. And one of the key things is, as you said, being thinner. One of the questionable things, I think not in a bad way, but we both know skin tightening technology sort of exists, which should augment the raft. In other words, if we could do liposuction and add fat to the abdominis muscles and the muscles get actually more muscular, can we tighten up the skin around there? Now, part of it is we do think that just adding fat to the six-pack muscles helps actually take up that space. But what are your thoughts on the latest from InMode, the quantum skin tightening technology?
That was one of the latest like buzzy launches from the meetings we've been at. So we saw Dr. Hoyos, that's his baby. So he launched that globally and like did demonstrations of it. So that's using still radio frequency, but underneath the skin to kind of heat the undersurface and then some of the deeper fascial layers. And so he has been working on that very hard and had a very impressive presentation. And so of course, like the device has gone out into the world and then we'll see how well everybody thinks it works, because there's been varying degrees of success with these skin tightening devices for a variety of reasons. And I think the biggest challenge has just been consistency. So if you're signing a patient up for skin tightening, you really want to be able to tell them that it's going to work.
Yeah. I mean, the experience overall has been, it works like okay, not very consistent, does add a significant cost to patients in the operating room who get this technology. Now, we're talking about the older stuff, or I am. The newer stuff, like this is literally like 6 weeks old. So it looks great on video. Dr. Hoyos is like awesome. He's world famous and he's a thought leader. So I really trust him when he says that he loves this device and he helped to create it. And we shall see how widespread it becomes and whether we're all going to get, after Ozempic and after working out, we're all going to get six-pack abs.
Yes, because isn't that the goal? So the final thought on that is when we're doing the transfers, obviously for men and women, there's probably a very different aesthetic. So just depending on the patient, the amount of fat that we may transfer into individual six-pack muscles or your obliques or hip area, that'll depend on the goals, whether we're just trying to look like super chiseled or just kind of add some kind of subtle athletic curves. It's all customizable. And for women, we're generally doing less than we would for a male patient. The final kind of buzzy topic in the body contouring world is this is not a surgical treatment. This is not surgical. But I attended the Alloclae launch party at the American Society of Aesthetic Plastic Surgeons meeting, except they didn't actually launch it. It's coming.
So they had the party, but they didn't launch the product.
Alloclae. So it was fun hearing from the president of the company. So Roy, we've been talking about Alloclae a little bit. We haven't gotten our hands on it yet. What is it?
Alloclae is fat processed from cadavers, and it's placed into syringes. So the syringes are actually pretty big. I think they're supposed to be 25cc syringes, if I'm correct. The interesting thing is this sort of large volume. It's fantastic for thinner patients who don't really have much body fat. So we can correct hip dips. We can do other things in the body for, breast cancer reconstruction or aesthetic use. This is the power of having fat. What do you think of this product? I mean, how are you going to use it?
It sounds fantastic, and I think it definitely meets a need, which is we need something that can be a little bit more robust. A lot of these off-the-shelf materials we have, it's like 1cc. That's great for faces, but when we're talking body contouring, like 1cc is not going to move the needle. So I think it's going to be fantastic for cleavage lines, for women who have like next to no breast tissue and minimal body fat or are unwilling to go do a little liposuction to get a little bit for that. I think it's going to be great for hip dips, great for like subtle non-surgical BBLs. I think all these places that you just would appreciate like a little bit extra padding, and it'll be great for patients that don't necessarily want to go to the operating room. So not everybody wants to have surgery, but they would still be interested in non-surgical enhancement.
I know you and I both think it's weird that nobody wants to hang out with us in the operating room, but I guess there's a tiny minority of people who don't want to meet us in the operating room. And you're right. This is perfect. I mean, because this could be placed in an office setting.
Yes. And it could even be like a touch-up procedure for patients like down the line. Maybe maybe they've had fat transfer to their breasts already done, like a surgical one, and maybe some years passed, maybe they lost a little bit of weight and they feel like they lost some of that. Great. Instead of going all the way back and redoing that surgery, we could just do like a little bit of non-surgical enhancement for them. So I think many of us are excited about this because I think it's going to really meet a need, and we're excited about the volumes that we're hearing are associated with each syringe or treatment. So that's going to be great. But that was it for the latest in body contouring. But these really are new concepts, and they're really changing how we're doing liposuction and fat transfer, and even combining this with our arm lifts and our tummy tucks. And it's just a really exciting time to be a plastic surgeon.
Yeah, I mean, technology has really advanced. I mean, it's plastic surgery. That's one of the great things about our field. Between the surgical improvements as well as the technology improvements, I mean, it's amazing what we can offer patients.
Yes. And we've been talking about, like, in breast, especially this like concept of preservation. And I think here again, it's like truly respecting anatomy. Like, let's not cut butter sticks into patients. Let's like build their natural abdominal musculature, that, because that's really that's the definition we're really trying to see. So I think with all these innovations, we're just it's getting closer and closer and closer to mirroring what nature intended. And I think that's going to lead to the best results, and also the most natural results, and the ones that age the best. So exciting times, and always great to get to talk to you about these topics, because you and I both love to stay on the cutting edge. And if you all have any questions about this, please leave a comment, ask questions. We love answering them, and it gives us great ideas for future podcasts. And as always, stay beautiful.
Stay beautiful.
Thank you for joining us on The Beauty Scientists. Be sure to visit thebeautyscientists.com and learn more about modern beauty and connect with Dr. Hamilton and Dr. Kim.